Now, we're in the day, 3 parts of this tournament. Wanted to step through it. Sometimes, you know, the first part that the kids will see is really the global awareness quiz. And this is something that they will have studied for. They'll study BBC kind of news stories, and we have a variety of stories and news items that we put on that website that I showed you. But we then compile that all into a 50-question multiple choice test that they take. And it's the first, after the opening ceremony, it's the first thing that they participate in. So it's in the Davis Auditorium, and it's a classic Scantron, fill in the dot kind of quiz. But this one page here, the Global Awareness Quiz, is the first page from last year's. So I thought you might like to see what level of questions we're asking them. And last year's test was a little bit harder than the norm. The high was a 45 out of 50. And I think the average was down about 36 or so, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was a pretty hard test for them. So this year we're going to try and make it a little bit easier, but it'll be challenging nonetheless. So, you know, I don't even have the answers for some of these now. I think about it. Pretty embarrassing. They're at the bottom. Oh, they're at the bottom. There you go. Thanks, Jake. I don't have to embarrass myself. But I thought you guys might like to see, you know, what kind of things they grapple with. There are kids that live for this component. There's an individual award, and then there's a team award for which student and which team had the best aggregated score on that test. And there's an award. Some kids really just love that. Then the next thing they wanted to do was really to walk through the second component of their day, which is this formal presentation. And for those of you that have done this before, you really won't see anything different. This rubric is really for you, for those of you that are new, is really how we take something that's incredibly subjective, it's incredibly creative and open to interpretation, and try and give it some kind of relative score so that we can somehow figure out who's best, because it's a competition, right? And that's what especially the high schoolers really like, is that I won. So we try and do this in a way that's as fair as possible, and really tries to give you the tools to be a consistent score so that we can have a consistent way of evaluating these various teams. So these are the different things that we basically look at and score for a team as you go through it. And what we'll do is we'll take a quick look at this, and then I've got one from last year, actually the one that you judged, Patrick, to take a look at it, and we'll kind of just go through and practice scoring, for lack of a better word, because it is not something that's very easy or clean to describe in 50 words or less and say, and I just go do that. It's not as easy as the Scantron form that we run through a computer. If it were, then you guys wouldn't really have to be here, it would be fun. So, these formal presentations can span the globe in terms of what they're covering and also how they're covering it. This year, because we've got these 8 categories called the Millennium Development Goals, each team has said, okay, I'm going to be doing my presentation on MDG 3. And so we will have grouped up all the different MDG 3 teams and assign them to a certain set of judges, so that the same set of judges see all the presentations that are around that particular topic. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you as a judge may get 2 teams that are MDG number 3 and 1 team that's MDG number 4, and they were the only team that did MDG number 4, so that don't get freaked out if you start to see teams. Do we have any that are doing 3 different MDGs? Yeah. So one judging team, I think, will have 3 different MDGs that you see, but don't worry about that. We just want to make sure that the teams that pick the same goal are going to have to see the same judges. So they'll come in, and the style of these, we kind of push these kids to be somewhat wacky in terms of what they're doing, very creative, and try and make it engaging for you, the audience. So this won't be like a Model UN type of competition where people are debating and dialoguing and it's all around the UN protocol. This could be something as wacky as Dr. Seuss characters presenting alternative healthcare methodologies, or Alice in Wonderland talking about globalization, the pros and cons of globalization, or something that's more along the lines of what I would term performance art. A group I saw that they focused on child soldiers from 10 different countries, and each person would give a summary of what the issues were in that country, and when they finished they had a foam core board that they were reading for them, and they held it up and it became a tombstone, and at the end you had 10 tombstones there, and it was just silent. So it's very much up to them on what they are passionate about and how they want to engage you, and that's part of what's scored. So if you take a look at it, there are 3 basic areas. There's the content, and that's the real heart of what we've asked them to do, and how relevant is it, how complex is it, you know, this topic that they've chosen. I think this year that's not going to be too difficult, because the topics are so broad. When you're talking about maternal health, within just maternal health there are a ton of different topics, but basically there's a rubric there that you can use to score. So everywhere from 2, where the subject matter they picked really has nothing to do with maternal health in that type of an example, to where the synthesis of the subject's complexities and everything are, you know, it's a global in scope, it's a relevant issue to what they've said that they're going to do, and its importance or relevancy to the MDGs. Then the second one is the structure and the rationale of the argument. You know, did they really research it? Did they really go through what you need to do to synthesize and make this a logical and a coherent kind of argument? And the third component of the content are the solutions. We really push them to offer up solutions on what would you suggest that we do? You know, you guys are now the experts out there. What are you telling us that we can do? And a lot of this is stuff that you will be pulling out of them and doing some Q&A afterwards to solidify your own thinking about how well they know that topic. But nonetheless, there's some judging that goes on just as you're viewing. Then the next section is all around creativity. Does it really hold your attention? Did they take this topic and do it in a way that either was, you know, engaging to you and somewhat silly, or was it very serious? You know, how did they do that in a way that really grabbed you and wanted you to sit there for the entire presentation? When I first started doing this, my thought was, well, you know, oh, come on, what, you know, we're talking about genocide. How creative can you be when you're talking about genocide, or how creative can you be when you're talking about human migration and some of the issues that it generates? But the more I've done this, the more I've come to appreciate the value of this, because of just today's modern society, it's not easy to get airtime if you aren't doing something in a creative way. It's very difficult to get a media station, or you know, a TV station or something like that to engage their audience, and it's just very, very dry in the way it's presented. So, and it's something that lends itself to the kids that are not debaters. They're not, you know, trying to go be lawyers, but just everybody. You know, anybody has a creative thought. Then the third piece is just how well is it presented. So is it well rehearsed? You know, is it something that they really, you can obviously see that it flows easily. They've thought about it, they've refined it, they've really done a good job on that. Next, is it memorized or is it read? A lot of times you get teams that they just didn't have time and they just read their lines. So there's just a little bit there. And then enunciation, is it clearly being said so you can hear it even when you're just 3 rows back? So all those things. What you will do when you come into, or when the team comes in, there will be what we call a proctor, who's going to be should be a Cornell graduate student that will run through all the do's and the don'ts, and will explain everything to the team, and they'll try and control the parents that may be in the back behind you and tell them to turn off their cell phones. You know, all that rigmarole that you kind of have to go through on each one of them. But then they'll do all this, the scoring too. When you do it, you can just circle the different where you feel that they came out, and then they'll total the points. If you're strong in math and you really want to do the points, you can do so.
They'll check on that.
Yeah, they'll double check. And then there's 9 points additional if they actually got it done within the time limit that they're given, which is 15 minutes. So that's kind of the rundown.